everybody. I'm with one of my new old friends, Miss Andrea.
AJ.
And we are here in Horta, on the beautiful island of Fayal, and wish everybody's here with us. But we're going to talk a little bit about last season in September. Miss Andrea broke the women's world record on 50 pounds for Bigeye Atlantic tuna at 290 pounds. Is that correct?
No, 292.5.
Okay, so I don't want to leave two out there for somebody to steal away. But Andrea is on our pro team for GZ Lures and Tackle Company, and we're just going to talk fishing because this is a great part of the world. We're in the off season, but still everywhere we go, we're talking fishing. You know, all last night, today, and then the other days when we were in San Miguel. It's just everybody here kind of has that infection, which I'm hoping that you have. But we're going to talk. The first question, Andrea, is your favorite fish?
Well, my favorite fish in general is tuna.
Can you talk to the phone?
Yes. So my favorite fish in general to catch is tuna, and I'm talking about all tunas. If it's a bigeye, if it's a yellowfin, if it's a bluefin, with different methods on the rod and reel, but also by hand. That's like by far for me the best.
So I'm a stand-up angler, and Andrea is as well, and she actually uses an acid wrap rod, which I think is really unbelievable. Those of you that have never seen an acid wrap rod, it's a very forgiving rod. It can move to the left, to the right when you're in the corner, and they tend not to roll over and break because of the way that the guides are laid out. We used them in Canada for many, many years, and the first time I saw one, I was like, I can't believe this thing is going to catch a fish. But they are forgiving. I don't know, there aren't many builders that build them, but you do have some cool ones.
Yes, I use a Nuba Extreme. They called Yuki Nuba Extreme.
Tell him, yeah.
Yuki Nuba Extreme I fish, and I use acid wrap because I only fish with 30 and 50 pound test, basically for big fish, for big tunas and big marlins.
Not for long.
Maybe not.
You need that heavy tackle going.
So that's what I do, and for that they are very forgiving. Yeah, it's my favorite rod to fish. I switched to acid rub rods about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and when you're in the corner, and those of you that know, like when the tunas come up at the end, regardless of their size, they're heavy, and you have to be able to play them and not let them get into the props. And ultimately, they're going to make that little circle. It's not always vertical, but it's easier with this rod. And I learned this with Spencer Norton in Prince Edward Island. Good old friend. And they're forgiving. They're normally a little bit longer. We've kind of gotten off the topic. So tell us about the world record.
Well, it was actually a very exciting day. October 1st, we head out in the morning, and most of the others were going down to the Azores bank, but we did head north. We had 2 hookups, 750 plus in the morning, and then on the second hookup, one of the swivels broke and had our mate injured. He cut his arm, so we had to run in real quick, stitch him up, and then he wanted to go back out. So we went back out and hooked up in the late afternoon on a big tuna. He was giving me a couple of really long, deep runs. He was going deep. And an hour and 40 minutes later, when I saw the fish, I kind of knew. He was the biggest bigeye I caught here in the Azores, and I've caught many so far.
Yeah, and I think this is known as a blue marlin fishery and pretty much everything else. But last year, and I think a little bit towards the tail end of the previous year, you know, that the tuna showed up. We got a big one last year, and I thought, man, this is a big marlin, and it ended up being a pretty large yellowfin tuna, which in my career I've never really caught them that big on the troll. It's always been drifting or chunking or something like that, but that sucker ate a marlin magic lure, and I was like, this is a big blue marlin, and it ended up being a yellowfin tuna, which was great. But
so this year was the first year for me we're having mixed hookups. with marlins and tunas.
Mhm.
It happens like later in the season, usually. Yeah, so I was out with the girls for a couple of days, and we did have mixed hookups with marlins and big tunas.
So the island chain here kind of moves, you know, from off of Africa east to west, and it seems to be that's the way that the fish come. And so Andrea lives in Punta Delgata.
Ponta Delgada, yeah, since 3 years. It's my place of choice. I fish in the Azores since 6 years, a lot, and then at a certain point I wanted my own home here and spend far more time. So I'm living in San Miguel. The Azores is a group of 9 islands. You have the southern group with San Miguel and Santa Maria. Then you have the central group where you have the island of Fayal, the island of Pico, São Jorge, Terceira, and Graciosa. And then there's the Norse group of Flores and Corvo. So right now we are basically in the central group, and at certain times of the years, it's just like I always associated with a highway. You have like in the north of Horta, you have this big V. You see it in the island and continues out towards Graciosa in the north, and I always think like this is the big fish highway. Okay, so there's a lot of exciting structure around it.
So I have a good friend, Scott, that calls this the 130 circuit based on the real size. And you know, you can't see it based on the filming, but we're staring at Pico Island. So this is very similar to Cape Verde in being in Mindelo. And I was there many years, you know, a couple years ago when the World Cup was caught, and we were literally in the channel. So I think that the funneling of the water through the channel, and then it leads in this place. You have the north over here, which is a wonderful fishery normally early. And then you have the 2 banks that move offshore, and I mean, you can't ask for more. And when you go offshore, it's kind of like you're going through an aquarium, because everything you see, birds, whales, you know, porpoise, dolphin. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. If you're into that type of stuff, and then you have all these maniacs running around in boats, trolling around moors. So, all right, anything else?
Pitching bait.
Or pitching baits.
Or pitching baits.
I'm a lure guy, but you know.
Yeah, I do both.
GC.
I do both. Then I just throw them without the hooks and pitch the bait.
Well, thank you, Andrea, so much for visiting with us, and thank you.